We're going to switch over. So some real quick background history, and then we'll get into it. So this is a proposal. What we're about to walk through is essentially a proposal that's out there under an EIP number. I don't have it off the top of my head. It's like 1501 or something. EIP is an Ethereum improvement plan. And this is an opportunity to make an adjustment to the underlying algorithm, to tweak it to have a better resistance against ASICs. And then moving forward, it has a whole bunch of parameters that you can go in there and set and change moving forward, that if somebody wants to go and tweak, you wouldn't have to necessarily have hard forks. You can go in there and just change parameters. That makes it very painful for ASICs. So they would have to pretty much go to the max settings of whatever the max parameters of that would be, from my understanding, to be able to account for any changes to the algorithm going forward. That being said, it's not and I'll be hyper transparent, it's not a very high critical path item for Ethereum. So this is an uphill battle to see if Ethereum would actually implement this, because right now their focus is primarily on deploying Casper, which is the proof of stake. Now, initially, Casper, from our understanding, is going to come out as a hybrid proof of stake, which means it's going to have part of a proof of work algorithm and part proof of stake. So essentially, when the blocks are going through their block reward, they'll be essentially, I'd say, call it toll gates of proof of work. So you'd have a range of proof of stake distribution, and then you would have a proof of work step in there as kind of like a toll gate, just to make sure the chain is in check. So the first implementation of proof of work is going to be a hybrid model. And so that's why this is still relevant for people that are going to be providing that proof of work element on GPUs right now. So if it is ASICs providing that, you have essentially still that attack vector of the centralization side of it. So bottom line, it is also a step forward for folks that are looking to remain, proof of work centric without ASIC really coming in there and trying to take over the hash power, essentially. So meaning, like, if Expanse, which I've seen a note today that Expanse chain is looking at maybe implementing this adjustment, potentially Ubik. They haven't said anything officially yet. I asked on the Ubik forums if they would be considering this change to the underlying algorithm for Ubik. And then going forward, if things like Raven or anybody else that wanted to implement something that was more memory hard, input output hard, versus having so much on the GPU side to where you could have an ASIC programmed to be customized for the compute operations. So going forward, it's just kind of a step forward if you're trying to keep things in a GPU class of having folks that have GPUs still be able to compete. And that is, the real big crust here is, like, can you have a decentralized way to have other folks participate, what it comes down to. Because agnostic to a lot of the discussions that are out there, and yes, there is financial incentive for people to create devices these things are essentially digital printing presses, right, on currency, because agnostic to any speculation, where it's going, whatever, there's a market value for the token, and that market value can convert into fiat. If you just take away all the other static around there, all this, I like to use an example of an analogy that I heard watching some of the consensus stuff, and I think it was Fluffy Pony Ricardo that said, it's all about the signal analysis. I'm looking for the signal. I don't care about all the static, right? So all the stuff around crypto in general and mining and all that, it all comes down to, if there's a huge incentive for somebody to go build something, they're going to go build it, an ASIC and all that other stuff. I have as a person that's been mining for a long time, since 2010, using GPUs and then moving over to different algorithms, the grassroots ability to have folks that don't know anything about the space can go out, use a graphics card, use a piece of hardware that they have to participate on this and get a token for their participation, and understand the ecosystem, understand of upholding a network and being incentive to do that, is a grassroots style kind of decentralization methodology that's an equalizer of that's cross borders. Somebody that and when you have a currency, even though it has some level of volatility, let's just say, it's still a very powerful equalizer if an individual contributor can plug in a graphics card and participate on that and then get a part of that effort. So that's part of the mantra, I would say, from a GPU standpoint, that people can participate and have an opportunity to maybe, they're performing a service. Now, there's a lot of, you can get into a whole speculation of, is that service worth anything, or is anybody using that? And what I would say is, from a platform standpoint, the platform is being held up. People are making developments on that platform, be it that Ethereum, be it that Ravencoin, be it that any other cryptocurrency that people are trying to build software on top of. That platform is being held up by the people that mine it. And they help facilitate the transaction side of it. So there's no point to get a philosophical conversation about all that. It's about as straightforward as that. So from the participation side, it's important to people to have an alternative that wants to get into the cryptocurrency space and be a participant. So I look at that as, this is that type of effort. So the people that would put this together believe in that and believe on proof of work and believe in the decentralization of that. So that's why we're supporting it, and why I wanted to review this opportunity for any of the other currencies that want to take a look at this. They have that opportunity to take a look at it. And I'll get into where I think the ultimate future of this space in general. I mean, I think it is ultimately, it will end up being a futile attempt, especially when there's a lot of growth in the cryptocurrency space. From a market cap standpoint, if there's a huge amount of profitability, you'll have very quick turnarounds on ASICs, and it's going to be very hard to hold that effort back. But I think there's going to be a place for GPUs in the world, in the level of compute and general application workloads that will be produced on the platforms, and it won't be so much about the security holding up of a platform as it will be working a workload on the platform. And we'll get into that here in a minute. Let's get into the actual white paper here. And thanks for those follows, guys. Do appreciate that. All right, so what I'm talking about right now is this GitHub address right now that was posted out by Christy. I think it's Christy Lay Minehan, and she goes under the handle of Oh Got a Girl, and this is essentially the thread that got sent out earlier today that I had retweeted and sent out to folks, made sure that the Ethereum development community had saw it. I'd reached out to Hudson Jamison directly on direct DMs to make sure that he had seen it and that he could get it in front of Vitalik and the Ethereum development community, and to see if we could get this as part of the next Ethereum development meeting that is this Friday. So there's some good response from it, from a regards to them acknowledging it and trying to get it as part of the agenda. So that's the first tackle, and then we'll see if things can come of that. And pretty much in this thread, there was some good back and forth from folks, the EIP that it's associated with, and then and this is on a retweet from my Twitter, so you could find this on BitsBeTrippin at BitsBeTrippin on Twitter. And I will make sure that I put this as a pinned post that you guys can get to it. And here's where we see the Expanse algorithm talking about wanting to implement it. So you're already seeing some adoption in the ecosystem right now of implementing this change that they are already on the space, already on this algorithm of implementing it. So 11 more notifications here. So when you click that link, it takes you to this GitHub, which is essentially the raw source code for it, and some adjustments. And then this is the start of effectively what I would call the white paper, where this kind of was born from and what the rationale is for this change. So ultimately, it's designed, right there in the top header, it explains what this is for. It's designed to close the efficiency gap on specialized ASICs. When we get down a little further and we look at the overview, these are some of the more key specifics to this particular change. As you'll see, these 5 bullets here, which is the changes to the Keka, and then increases the mixed state, adds random sequences in the math loops, reads small low latency caches that support random addresses. I assume that's SD-RAM that's on chip, and then increases the DRAM read from 128 bits to 256 bytes, which essentially is all things that are going to put a little more overhead on the I/O. And then it looks like, bottom line, the efficiencies from this would be minimal, but the much less for this is towards this last response right here. This would minimally roughly 1.1 to 1.2 efficiency gains, much less than excuse me, than what it would be for an ASIC. So if an ASIC tried to implement these changes, they would not get a huge benefit. Bottom line, it would be just about double the efficiency gain. Not 3, 4, 10, 50, 20x, which is normally what we see with ASICs, where if you're mining something at, let's say, like Siacoin, where you were at 9,000 hashes, or on a full rig, maybe even 12,000 hashes on a nice 8-card full rig, it went to 45 gigahash. I mean, you're talking a massive adjustment, like 1,000x increase for having a ASIC. So this minimizes the effect of what an ASIC could be able to achieve. And then here's some of the basic rationale on what and why they're looking for that. And what I would really hone on this is why the ASICs are kind of the the counter to this industry, I think. And it's nothing personally against any one of the companies. It's just the gap is pretty significant when it comes to the participation ability of people. Let me switch back over to this. And what these 4 or 5 highlighted pieces are showing is that, the distribution, the amount of content, the amount of access that people have to these specialized ASICs is a lot lower. Some of the stuff that's not covered in these 5 points, and you can read them yourself, that I've seen personally with ASICs by owning ASICs since 2014. Actually, my first ASIC was in late 2012, early 2013, which was a Butterfly Labs SHA-256 one for Bitcoin. I was on one of the pre-orders early. It took them 9 months to get it to me, and there was a lot of speculation that they were actually mining with them before, which, I mean, I don't know if that officially ever came out proven, but obviously they did some level of burn-in testing. And the ASIC lasted probably about 4 to 6 months, and then it went out and it died. And by that time, Butterfly Labs was already collapsing. So you have these companies that kind of go fly by night with some of the technology. I'm going to keep it agnostic to where they're from. If it's from China or wherever, it doesn't matter. It's about a business model. I don't care if it's from Taiwan, China, or San Bernardino, California. It doesn't matter. It's about business ethics and the way they approach their product, their support, and all of that. And it doesn't matter about borders. I don't care about anything that comes from China or any of that. It's about how do they handle their business model. And right now, there's no incentive for them to commercialize it, get it on shelves, get it past SEC tested to where you can get it onto the shelves at Best Buy and try to create an ecosystem. It is very predicated on small enough runs to facilitate absolute, pandemonium that would be created if they never sold them to the public. Like if you have an algorithm out there and you build an ASIC, you by obligation you're going to have to sell some of those. Somebody's going to have to sell those to the genuine community, because otherwise the small participants that initially got into the coin, maybe on a GPU, if there's exponential 10x, 20x growth on it, and then everybody stopped mining it, and then you just had this entity that was just mining all the coins, you create a very bad ecosystem. And that's essentially what's happened by and large with Bitcoin. But Bitcoin has the critical mass and the name recognition to still be sustained, even though it's highly centralized on the mining side. And there's still a lot of people going after Bitcoin chatter with, you have very private groups that create SHA-256 algorithms. A lot of those templates have been out there. There's nothing to really discover there. It's more of how fast can you get the manufacturing out there, how small can you make the chip and a little cheaper, and what's your power advantage. But on algorithms that are not as established, if you just had the ASIC maker making a chip for it and then only 10 people were using it, there's no real benefit from the grassroots side. And what I'm saying by that is you see the massive adoption from Ethereum. There are a lot of people, and maybe it's my closed view or very narrow focused view of the amount of participants that are in the Ethereum network mining is pretty significant. There's everybody in my circle and around my circle, and even the people that I engage with at some of the very crypto related events, somebody at some point has mined Ethereum, or somebody has known somebody that's mined Ethereum, and that ecosystem creates some kind of interest. And that's been my whole point with this whole thing is, if you don't have participation, even at a grassroots level, or the opportunity to participate, then your focus of getting the asset is decreased, I believe, personally, unless you've created some kind of other ecosystem, or if you've started established as a delegated proof of stake coin or something to that effect. There is just a whole channel. I look at it as like there's a brand and there's channels that can get you interest in things, right? The fact of a coin as a proof of work coin creates a channel, right? So like in a business world, a channel is the ability to be able to interact with a participant and create some kind of potential, maybe even revenue stream or some kind of growth. And if you're an algorithm that has tokenized to the point that you're a proof of work algorithm, you have now participants that have a willingness to commit hardware and mine your algorithm. And then you can also have counterparties, because there's a one-to-many connection to those people that are mining that may purchase it. And including the miners may purchase back currency also, not just sell, right? So you're creating an ecosystem when you're doing that. Coins that have no channels, at least to a mining aspect, because they went straight proof of stake, or they're an ERC20 token, still have a need. The ERC20 tokens, they have a need to require Ethereum, because that's the way they facilitate the transactional side of their coin, because you need Ethereum to move the tokens around, right? So it's given Ethereum a huge baseline use case. If people say Ethereum doesn't have a use case, at a minimum set, it's facilitating billions of dollars worth of transactions for the entire ERC20 ecosystem, because you have to use Ethereum with that. So there is a huge interest in ensuring that people can still participate in that. And I think it could go a couple different ways if they don't go with this kind of implementation. And it becomes highly centralized on the mining side, because more efficiencies are derived on the ASICs, and they increase the bus. You can get more IO output, because it's going to go down a path that way if left unchecked. And if Casper stays on a hybrid model, then you're going to have that proof of work all locked up by a few participants. And it looks we have a girl in here, so she can answer some questions for you guys too. So there is a huge need to have some level of participation from the general ecosystem. So what the rationale on this commodity hardware piece is showing is the centralization, the high barrier of entry, the no reserve group. So obviously with the specialized hardware, I had a handful of ASICs. I've had Butterfly Labs. I've had an Avalon. I think it was like A2 Avalon. I've had the Innocellin. It was like 330 mega hash for script at the time. And then I've done a few different reviews on like grid seeds and a few. So there's a whole period that I had done the ASIC route, and my surmise, and I know things have improved over time, and Bitmain's had some good success with the reliability of some of their ASICs, but by and large, all of them, besides I would say probably the one that still can fire up right now and run, that was pretty successful, was from the Israeli group. I can't think of their name anymore. But it was about a 5 terahash machine. It was very expensive at the time, but from a build quality, it was top notch. But the rest of the different builds that I had from like Grid Seed and all that stuff, hardly any of that stuff works anymore. The Rock Miner, which was acquired, I believe, by Bitmain, and Antminer. I mean, all of these ASICs failed. I mean, they failed a lot sooner than the graphics card hardware, and there's no like warranty. There's none of that kind of stuff. So if the ecosystem moves and pivots over time to move to a space of, you know, if it's Samsung, Intel, and all these other players get into the ASIC side because they see where there's all these currencies and they have great value and they want to participate on creating the tools, you know, it's like the mining picks. Having the channel set up to then commercialize that and be like NVIDIA and AMD to where they're, you know, putting, you know, a line of particular ASICs out and having a cool naming brand and putting them on Best Buy shelves. And it's starting to facilitate the need for miners and have warranties. And then you create the whole back channel support, right? And that kind of pivots and changes the concept of then ASICs, because now you're making it a more of a fair market participant. There's accountability from a company standpoint because it's not a private company. Now you're talking Intel, you're talking Samsung, you're talking all these bigger companies that would potentially get into the market and compete. And then allow the consumers to make sure that they have that chance. So when people are like, are you anti-ASIC? I'm anti one guy running all of it because that's centralization. And the back channeling, the no kind of peer review of the hardware to see if they have a backdoor. Can they shut down my ASIC if they don't agree with what I'm going to do because they want to have a contentious hard fork? That kind of stuff is all bad behavior and stuff that Bitmain's been known for. And maybe they will go and correct that. Who knows? But this is a kind of a smack in the face of that kind of effort, is to, you know, have the community kind of say, no, we don't think so. We need to have another alternative here. If we go down here and show a little more detail they get into in this, the ASICs-resistance, and then it's, you know, that kind of top statement to what I was just saying here. Let me scroll down some, and then I'll make sure I take your guys' questions and answers. I know some people have subscribed, and thanks for that, subscribes, and we'll get to those. I want to get through the rest of this, and then we'll have a little spot where we can talk. While the goal of ASIC resistance is valuable, the entire concept of ASIC resistance is a bit of a fallacy, as CPUs and GPUs are ASICs themselves. I think from a technical standpoint, that's obviously that's absolutely true. I think the concept in general, though, is the availability to general market and everything I was talking about with regards to having back channel, if you have warranty issues and all that. This is just a product at the end of the day that's doing better in the space than another product. And the service and the transparency and the feedback and all that is really bad on one, but they're the only guys we can buy from. So we got a girl standing by with the team here to answer any questions. That's great. We'll let you guys handle any specific questions in the channel and the chat. Got a Girl has their team that put this together that can answer some of the technical questions. So please, if you have technical questions, ask them in the chat as I'm going through this, and we'll make sure that this is available for folks on YouTube and everything else. So let's go back down through a little bit more. So there's another good explanation in general when it comes to the existing proof of work algorithms, and really this kind of center points kind of a thread that was out there last week, I believe, from the Scicoin, one of either the Scicoin developer or the CEO of Scicoin, when it came to ASIC and the futile attempts of trying to combat it because of the incentive model that's behind cryptocurrencies to essentially create that arms race of building the next new thing and being the fastest on it. And it shows the potential gains here by algorithm and why, you know, it's kind of like, you know, here's the algorithm, here's the potential gain, and here's why, you know, highlighting some of the specifics that are being done to navigate that better than a GPU could. Script and NeoScript. X, and I think one of the surprise ones is, you know, the fact that Ravencoin has been touted as you know, a lot of money has been invested into the algorithm to make it work, and you know, people that developed it. But even something like X16R having the potential ASIC efficiency gain of 1000x is kind of eye-opening on that, and seeing, you know, hey, you know, we're just talking mainly specific ASICs, not even getting into FPGAs and the programmability of FPGAs, specifically to if you had a seasoned developer in that space to be able to write the right bit stream to create a you know, a real advantage ahead of an ASIC development on the FPGA. And for the folks that don't know what FPGAs are, essentially they are programmable graphics cards, graphics devices that you could actually send software through to optimize its the full chip that's on the ASIC on that FPGA. So you can customize essentially software that can manipulate that and have a higher advantage. And you can have some huge gains on specific algorithms on FPGAs. There's a pretty big Bitcoin talk thread out there highlighting that. And I haven't seen any. I mean, I've seen some numbers that people are reporting, but I haven't actually seen like a video of these things happening, them firing up a miner. And maybe they are kind of being kind of secretive with it, and not because they don't. I mean, ultimately, you're giving the keys of the kingdom away if you have that competitive advantage. But you know, some of them are just claims right now. And then showing, you know, the abilities between a couple of the other algorithms, Ethash, which just got reported with a, you know, the Z9 Bitmain device that was 10,000 souls for like 800 watts. Pretty big deal. Thanks for the subscribes, guys. I do appreciate that. The cuckoo cycle. I don't even think I've even heard of that algorithm. Which currency's using cuckoo cycle? Don't know. Crypto Night, and then there's the Ethash, which is what we're talking about right now on this particular chain, showing that 2 times the efficiency gain. And it's really due to the large size of the DAG file, which is kind of supporting what the actual Sidecoin analysis came back through, saying that you know, Ethereum really had one of the most superior algorithms when it came to this space in proof of work when it came to ASIC resistance right out of the gate. Thanks for that tier 1 subscribe, buddy. And then we got now down to the technical bits, which, I mean, a lot of these are the parameters, and I would let Girl respond back to this. But bottom line, the idea behind this, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that having some of these items parameterized is to give an advantage to where you can program this through what I would say potentially a soft fork versus having to go through another hard fork to adjust and tweak the algorithm. You could do it through these parameters, if I'm correct. As long as these parameters were set, then if there was a change, they could be tweaked, and then that succinctness of that tweak is then propagated through a soft fork. She can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's the way I understand that. And then we can get in, and I'm waiting for her to respond to that one. We'll, you know, you guys can see this is more of the kind of peer-reviewed piece of the code that will be looked at hopefully by the ETH developers. And it looks like Expanse has already looked at this, and maybe Ubik and the other. I think there's Music Coin. There's a couple other Ethash currencies that could take advantage of this. No tweaking needed. There you go. She says no tweaking. So we wouldn't have to do any soft forks after if we needed to make some change. Excellent. So that kind of covers, I mean, so essentially I'll get into kind of what's the next steps of this. So bottom line, this came out. I made sure that folks knew about it today. I think it's a very good approach to a problem that anybody that's been in the mining scene, especially on the Bitsby trip or the proof of work GPU side for any period of time has been really looking for kind of a lifeline when it came to, you know, Ethereum. that prior to knowing that it's going to go proof of stake at some point, I mean, that's their vision. But if it remained, let's say they have an issue and they have to stay with a hybrid model, then you still have an opportunity to still participate in that, the minting of blocks there, and then getting some of the rewarded returns. Now, I know one of the adjustments in the EIP coming up for Casper talks about the assurance level dropping to 0.6 per block. So you have the drop of the assurance level from 3 to 0.6. And then if you're doing a hybrid model, it comes down to how many blocks are going to be proof of work and then how many are going to be proof of stake. And I believe the first rendition of the paper that was submitted up to the Cornell University's site showed 99 blocks of proof of work, 1 block of proof of stake as a quality gate check. I don't know if they're changing that. They may have implemented a different change of doing it like 49 and 1, but essentially you would have the 80% decrease in total assurance. And what I mean by assurance is how much you get for a block reward. So your pools and all that you're participating in, if they win a block right now, they get 3 coins per 15 seconds. They'd be getting 0.6 coins per every 15 seconds, which means about an 80% just net drop. And then if you have a hybrid model to where 99 of the blocks are proof of work, that means 99 would be the 0.6 distribution every 15 seconds. And then you would have 1 block that would be a proof of stake rewarded to the proof of stake essentially nodes that are hosting that stake. So you have a 1% drop there. So effectively 81% drop in assurance level, which is pretty significant. And I don't know if they're going to hold that or not, but you're going to have this very huge de-incentivization to have so much network security on Ethereum, which I have still yet to really understand why more security is not better from a brute force 51% attack level. But so you guys have the actual person that was a contributor to this in the chat right now. So if you guys have specific questions with this, and I have put out, I asked them in the chat right now. We can see if we can get some of these. I'll repeat it for the folks that get to see this on YouTube. Maybe we can put that part in there too. But if you have technical questions, please get them out there. And if you have any counter opinions of why you don't think this should be included, you can start with, "Hey, I'm from Bitmain," and then you can go ahead and say your response, and we'll give you that space to talk. It is a good. Just had to say it. I've actually reached out to them a couple times to Bitmain, not to try to get an ASIC or anything, but just to have a facilitated conversation with what their vision in the space is, and then challenge the consumer model. Because I get the game. I understand the game. Man, my eyes look terrible on live stream right now. I get the game right now, but the game could be so much better. Like if you actually created a product line and got them into stores. I know there's a lot of risk with that, but I think that if you had, look at this Alienware box, right? This is $169. I can put a graphics card in there, run with my laptop. But if you had an ASIC that looked cool, right? Because you got to get the consumer pull on the branding side. But then you created this kind of wax on, wax off, Mr. Miyagi style Karate Kid thing, to where you're getting people into the ecosystem. You're giving them an opportunity to buy a device. And then you can get them to understand cryptocurrency, understand this space in general, get smarter with blockchain, maybe become a developer, maybe want to try to say, hey, it doesn't do this. Well, why doesn't it do this? Ask the right questions, become part of the community, be a contributor in there. Get general market in there. You'd have this fusion with, maybe graphics card companies, and maybe that's their calling going forward, is not letting, the backdoor potentially Trojan horse that you're letting into your mining farm take over the space. No chance to talk with Bitmain. Monopolies never want to talk to anybody unless somebody suits them. Yeah, I mean, it could be a thing. I mean, so like in 2014, we had there was a conference, and they had, at least the Antminer group was at one of the conferences, and I had a pretty good discussion with them in the space at the time, and it was a pretty detailed collaborative discussion of, like, you know, from the from where things could go if multiple cryptocurrencies were coming out there, and, you know, why GPUs were a good thing in the space, and, you know, why some things should be left untouched. But it comes down to simply just money. I mean, like, people are not going to leave all that cheddar out there if they can build a piece of hardware that can handle, you know, that could mine it faster. I mean, we are literally talking about revenue, right? So, I mean, the line to why they should build it is pretty straightforward, right? So I'm not going to fault them on that. If they have the tooling and the know-how and the best engineers in the world when it comes to, you know, quick turnaround, and they have a product line and supply chain that's in check, I mean, I get why they're doing it. And there was a lot of people before them that failed. I mean, a lot. Using some of the same techniques. And I mean, KNC Miner, I mean, I talked to them a couple times in 2012 and 2013. I was actually trying to get a Skype interview with the creators when I ordered my Titan. I never got my Titan. I mean, I ordered it was 10 grand, and I never got it. And mind you, that was like 10 grand Bitcoin in like 2013. That was a lot of Bitcoin, boys and girls. That was gone forever. You know, and then some people got them, and I was able to do a test at the Miners, the Hashers United Miners, the only conference that I know that was for the miners, which was Hashers United in 2014, October in Las Vegas. And, you know, I got to test, and somebody actually had brought their KNC Titan with them, and I was able to do kind of a review of it there. And it did like 3 of the 4 cubes worked, 1 of them didn't. So I second that question. What's the question? When POS hits, what would be some alternative coins to mine? There's lots of alternative coins to mine. Yeah, I mean, you could use something like what to mine to look. What I would look at is, it depends on your operation. I mean, what I personally do, guys, you guys know what I usually mine. I'm on a lot of the known currencies, obviously. I'm on Raven. I mine Ubix still. I have several machines on Cryptonite supporting their algorithm. I have still a handful of machines on Ethereum. And, you know, I do look at and parse pretty much every day Bitcoin talk and see who's putting out new coins out there, new algorithms, and kind of do that kind of sniff test to see, you know, is this just a pump and dump? What is this? What's their innovation? What are they trying to bring? Because some of the earliest, the earliest adoption on a currency when it first comes out, you have the most opportunity on proof of work to be able to get some kind of share of it. And then if it does become a good product, you're taking that hedged bet that it's going to lift. And if you've participated in that network and you're an early adopter and you're talking about it to your friends, and you're maybe even if you're a developer or somebody that can help contribute to the team, you know, reach out. So many people are takers, right? I believe firmly that if you believe in a project, and even if you don't have technical ability, like technical when I'm talking about like being a person that can review code or submit questions on GitHub or any of that kind of stuff, you know, what can you do? Reach out to the community leaders of those particular coins if you want to be a participant in it and help grow awareness on it. That's what grassroots community type of stuff is in general. Join their Discord, ask the questions, don't be cynical, you know, and see, you know, what are they trying to accomplish, you know, and then you'll figure out pretty quickly if it's like 1 or 2 people just running the coin and there's not a lot going on. And you can figure out probably in a few days, you know, is this a group that seems organized and wants to do something, or is it, you know, something else? And that's why, I mean, I get so many messages. People are like, how did you find Raven? What was the deal? it kind of popped really quick, and now it's getting some, it got on a crypto bridge, and it's got some legs under it. And there's that last community meeting had 100 people in it. It reminded me a lot of the initial like Bitcoin meetups. It was a huge meetup. But I think it comes down to the contribution from the community. I think it comes down to the people that are believe in the vision of what it's doing, and that has a lot of power in it, and it's going to get people behind it. And that's why when I read it, I was like, man, this makes the Philsies and the Spidey senses here seem a lot like 2013, 2012 Bitcoin, actually 2011 Bitcoin, when people were first starting to meet up. And I like the asset system that they're trying to build with it. I like it from a platform standpoint, and so I support it. And I think currencies like that. So it's not just about technical ability. It does help if you can contribute technical help to a project, for sure. And I try to use this platform with you guys to not just educate, you guys on the things that I've learned and said, hey, I was stupid and did this and check this out. This is how it works when it comes to mining. But it's kind of turned into more of, when mining kind of pulls down, when there's not a lot of new hardware coming out. You guys have seen all the hardware that's out there right now when it comes to the GPU market. I've covered everything from a GPU market standpoint, 570s, 580s, dual card, 390 dual cards. I mean, everything. There's nothing out right now. And when the 1180s and 1160s and 1180 Ti's and all that stuff comes out, I'm going to be out there, one of the first to get them as quick as I can, including like if I don't know if the new AMD lines are going to be called 680s or 670s, but whatever their new lines are going to come out, we'll be grabbing those, and we'll be taking them through the various algorithms. I'm wanting to get another multi-miner update out to you guys. I've already kind of started that process to get a new multi-miner up there. But, that's what I'm trying to do from the community side, is to bring you guys awareness, and then let you know kind of the fails that I have with it and try to fix it. But a lot of other channels have spawned up to help each other. Voss Coin's out there, I Mine Blocks, Burnt One. There's a whole handful of them. I'd give CryptoMind a shout out, but like he went crazy on me and started hating on Twitter on me and stuff. So for no apparent reason. So I had to block him. But I liked his content. I mean, it was fine. I've never had a problem with him. Something with Dubai freaked him out or something. And when I was out in Dubai, he was like, you support terrorists and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, no, I don't. And actually, I don't know what's wrong with you, but stop tweeting me. So, but there's a lot of other content. I mean, from his content, I would say he's fine. I have no qualms against it, but it's there's a huge community out there supporting each other. So if you're a content creator and you believe in this space and you find something, I mean, go out there and contribute. Because it's not, I mean, as long as you're participating, you're earning currency. And that currency, obviously you're doing to pay off your hardware and make some revenue with it. But there's also opportunity to meet a whole bunch of new people, get into a whole emerging technology that has a massive amount of effort and people behind it to look at leveraging those platforms, right? Because if you're a miner, all you're doing, you're participating by holding up the platform, and then there's a whole bunch of development on top of that platform on some of the major currencies, right? And people are still shaking out how best to use these. It's we don't know fully what it is, but we know it's cool, and we want to build things on it, right? And there's a lot of good use cases out there. Some of the implementations, though, are a little shaky because some of the tech in general is still very I would say emerging when it comes to some of the use cases. They have to adjust some of these use cases. And that's part of the stuff that I do in my day job, is to make sure that people understand how to use something like this kind of technology in a use case that makes sense. This isn't a database. You can use it as a database. I wouldn't do that. But from a system of record, from immutability, from audibility, from security, these kind of elements that you can use of blockchain is maybe like a foreign key constraint, where you can actually have out there a piece of a state of a process, and it's distributed and it crosses borders. Nobody has to go out there and have licensing, and then people can subscribe to that as a service, and you can create this whole publisher subscriber setup on a public blockchain, stuff like that, to where I could still have very centralized databases, and then start it with the approach of having a canonical document on a blockchain. Stuff like that is huge, and that's all platform driven, agnostic to what like a person mining cares about, right? Because a person mining, all they care about essentially is that my miner's working, it's submitting shares, and I'm holding up the security of the platform. I'm facilitating transactions. I'm making sure the plumbing's good. I'm holding up a network, right? I mean, that's about as far as a miner goes. So when people start having that counter argument, like, well, we don't care about the miners, and this is the stuff that I went back to to Hudson, which is the Scrum Master for Ethereum, to try to say the miner story is like, hey, bro, I got you that you want me to support your development on cryptocurrency, or on the platform, because you're trying to host the people that are on the top of the platform. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a line, boys and girls, because you got me on my soapbox. And he talked about Raven once. Pull out the black one because you guys can't see all the other colors. And you probably can't see that because it's not thick enough. Bottom line, there's a line. That's a platform. Apps on top, miners on the bottom. It's the chain. We're holding the platform up, guys. And we're incentivized to hold up that platform for people who can build applications on these things. And when they can be, even on something like Ravencoin or Bitcoin, they can facilitate basic transactions. And then recall between two parties, right? You can have more development that creates essentially like an Ethereum virtual machine, a DApp, a decentralized application. When we're having that argument from the miner's perspective, I got you. You want to do cool things? That's great. I want to support you. It sounds like you're a good opportunity to continue to support your network. But it's also still part of the substructure that holds that network up. And we're holding up the security of that network. So that's the position I've been trying to go back with Hudson and most of the team there, is like, you know, we are, since 2015, the miners have supported this network, have helped build the ecosystem through discussion of what Ethereum is, how you can participate. And then if that strives other communication to the development effort, if people see, man, there's all these people that are mining it, and man, there's all the graphics card in the entire world went out of stock twice, right? That creates awareness, right? Huge amounts of awareness. Like, why the hell are all these people being part of this? Why is it cool? The point is that we're the platform holders. We're holding up the platform, right? So if we're creating these other ancillary, not correlated direct events to what Ethereum is, but we're creating the buzz. We're mini because we're distributed, because anybody can participate, right? That's a huge deal. That's a huge deal from a branding and from a marketing standpoint, just in general. So if you take that element out, you take all of that element out of the people that are creating that. I mean, how else is Ethereum, before Ethereum really popped? Like when it started to really kind of pop in like May of last year, right? All the graphics card in the country was out. Everybody started talking about cryptocurrency mining. They weren't talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin became like part of the subject matter because it's the name recognition from a cryptocurrency side. But when we cleared out all those GPUs, right? And I'm not saying that necessarily was a good thing, but it created a buzz that you had CNBC, you had NVIDIA, you had stock reports from AMD, you had everybody talking about cryptocurrency. And then you were trying to figure out all the people like, well, why the hell are everybody mining? Oh, wow, it's hyper profitable. That's a great, awesome effect of it. That being said, it still brought awareness to the community. It still brought awareness to, I know my developers that had nothing to do with mining were like, man, maybe I should develop on that platform. A lot of people are into it. The whole entire world just lost all their graphics cards to people that were contributing to that effort, right? So what I'm saying is that if you have something that gets very huge traction in a space, that it affects other other ancillary markets to the scale of stocks, and I mean, they have to talk about it. I mean, I had Jensen from NVIDIA at CES after his keynote speech. I walked down there, got access to him, and asked him point blank. I'm like, hey, man, Haven't heard anything from you guys from when it came to a cryptocurrency standpoint. And, and I kind of got, the, hey, I'm not going to talk about that kind of thing. And that's okay from a CEO, right? I put him in a spot. He wasn't ready, prepared to answer the question. Hadn't talked to his legal team and all the other structure that's there. I totally get that. But, I mean, the fact that we even had that engagement, he's talking about AI and he's talking about machine deep learning and he's talking about, get the gamer side of it. But what depleted his supply was the cryptocurrency market, right? So